We've had such a deluge of testimonies of people leaving notes and saying that this channel has helped them to reverse their diabetes. I finally had to sit down and analyze why this is. Why is it that people with extremely and dangerously high glucose levels are able to get down into the normal range as they watch this YouTube channel, and often in less than 6 months? Now, by way of introduction, I need to make a couple of quick comments. First, let me say that I know some of you are going to criticize me for using the word reverse in connection with diabetes. You may admit people can get their A1Cs down into the normal range, but you say that's not reversing diabetes unless you can eat a whole pizza, have a candy bar as a dessert, and wash it down with a giant Pepsi, and still keep the numbers below 140 or so. And if they cannot do that, you will declare they haven't really reversed their diabetes, they've just avoided it by eating far fewer carbs. But when I say people are reversing their diabetes, here's what I'm talking about. Suppose a man has an average A1C of 5.3 while in his 20s. As he reaches his mid-30s, his A1C is now averaging 5.9. And by his 40s, his A1C has drifted up some more and is in the low 6s. But at the age of 55, his doctor tells him he is diabetic and he has an A1C of 8.2. This man gets desperate, gets on YouTube, discovers my videos, applies what he learns, and within 6 months, he now has an A1C of 5.3, the same A1C average he had when he was in his 20s. Is that not reversing diabetes? He may or may not have completely reversed his insulin resistance, but he has surely reversed his numbers. Any mathematician will tell you that if you see a steady rise in glucose levels from your 20s through your 50s, then suddenly you drop right back down into the numbers you had while you're in your 20s, something has been reversed. So when I talk about many people reversing their diabetes, that's what I'm talking about. If you chart their numbers from decade to decade and year to year, and then suddenly those numbers plummet and go down to normal levels, there has been some kind of reversal. A second caveat I need to mention is that in most cases with these people who see amazing victories with their glucose levels, I'm not the only YouTuber that they're watching. There are a number of others that are saying pretty much the same things that I am, and a growing number of doctors who do so, which I'm not. Some will say that I was their major influence. Others will say, well, it was you, Dennis, and Dr. Fung, or you and Dr. Barry, or you and Dr. Sten Ekberg, or sometimes it was all of us together. So I'm not taking all the credit for their success. I'm happy to have done my little part, and I'm also happy that there are a growing number of others that are promoting healthy, low-carb eating and time-restricted meals. With that being said, my YouTube channel has helped a great many to beat the bully of diabetes, and being of the analytical sort, I finally had to sit down and try to sort out why this is. It's not that I'm totally surprised by these success stories. I could have guessed some people would be helped. But the truth is, I never expected it to be this many and from such an international community. I guess a part of it is YouTube's amazingly wide outreach. I never realized that people all over the world are watching YouTube, and diabetics seem to be increasingly turning to YouTube to see if they can find some kind of answers for the crisis that's threatening their health and their life. Here are a few comments left on my channel which certainly demonstrate the incredibly broad outreach that this little channel has. One person writes, "It's been over 6 months since I first came across your videos, and I'm happy to say that I went from a 6.9 to a 5.1 and lost a lot of weight. You opened my eyes in defeating diabetes. Now I know what to eat. Thanks again for the tips. I owe you my lifestyle." Another wrote, "My A1C was 9.1, and it's now a fantastic 5.0. My blood sugar that day was 424, and now it runs in the middle 90s. And I've lost 60 pounds just by eating a near zero carbohydrate diet. Keep spreading the message because you and Benedicta made a difference in my life. Another person wrote, everyone with diabetes should watch this channel. In August, I was diagnosed with type 2 with an A1C of 12.5. I had no clue about it. I came across this channel and took all the advice. Today, at the doctor's, my A1C is 5.0, and my weight went from 320 to 259. I feel like a new person. Thank you for putting the info out there, and thank you for this channel. God bless you. And one more, this person writes, thank you very much. Your videos have done miracles for me. For years, I've been 11.6 to 11.3 as an A1C. Now this year, 10.0 down to 5.8 in 3 months only after watching your videos. I know now how to control diabetes. Please keep on making your videos. You are helping so many. I always recommend your videos to my family, friends, and people struggling with diabetes. Thank you, and God bless you. Well, I could go on, but I'll stop there. There's no doubt in my mind that large numbers of diabetics have become former diabetics, at least according to the numbers, because Benedict and I post videos from our upstairs little video studio here in Texas. And the question I want to answer on this video is why? Why are people finding this kind of victory? Especially considering that I'm not a doctor and I have zero medical training other than the books I've read and the things I've learned from a buddy of mine named Mike. Mike the blood sugar meter. I've come up with 7 reasons why so many are finding help. So let's get into them. First, I'm convinced people find victory over diabetes watching this channel because they learn they can see victory. Now, that may sound kind of strange, but the truth is many diabetics conclude there's precious little they can do about their condition. They're just one of the unlucky ones who have mysteriously come down with diabetes, and about all they can do is take their meds and hope they can hang in there for a while until their condition sends them to an early grave. But when diabetics watch this channel, something happens that changes that thinking. Watching me interviewing other diabetics who have seen victory, hearing my lectures, and watching Benedicta and me eat different foods and comparing the effect they have on our blood sugar, some of the mystery is taken out of this affliction, and a powerful conviction and emotion begins to grow within them, and this emotion is called hope. Maybe, just maybe, I'm not doomed after all. Maybe I could be one of those guys with a testimony of victory. And suddenly, when there was no motivation before, now there is. Often they start binge watching our videos, and the more they watch, the more convinced they become that victory is possible. In fact, it's not just possible, it is likely. They go from hopeless to hopeful, and from unmotivated to highly motivated. A second reason I believe so many people find victory as they watch the videos on this channel is that I make things nice and simple. I'm all about results, not theories, not complicated concepts. If I wanted to drive from McKinney down to Dallas, there would be no reason for me to take 100 different roads and make 100 different turns. The best way to get to Dallas from McKinney is to get on Highway 75 and drive straight south about a half an hour, and bang, I'm in Dallas. Nice and simple. And that's how I approach victory over diabetes. Take the shortest, most direct path you can to go from an A1C of 12 to an A1C of, say, 5.5. Don't fool around with those side streets. Don't indulge in any sightseeing. Just get there as fast as you possibly can. And if you've watched my videos, you can guess the nature of that path. And that brings us to the third reason so many people overcome diabetes as they watch these videos. This has to do with a 2-pronged attack on your enemy, a low-carb diet and time-restricted eating. These 2 strategies are so highly effective that either one of them could crush diabetes all by itself in many cases. Some people find they don't even have to go very low carb if they'll simply limit their eating to a 6-hour window and change to a medium carb diet instead of a high carb diet and drop all the sugar and the white processed flour. They do this, and lo and behold, they get to the promised land of an A1C in the 5s. And there are others that don't go in much for the time-restricted eating, but they slash their carbs dramatically and they find victory. So either one of these strategies is amazingly powerful at beating diabetes. But when you combine both of them in your life, diabetes has no corner to hide in. It should not be a surprise when your A1C starts plummeting. Of course it's going to drop. It would be almost impossible for it to do otherwise. If a guy is coming to attack you with a stick and you're carrying a machine gun in one hand and an assault rifle in the other, what kind of a chance do you think he has? And that's about the way things are when you get serious with significantly reducing your carbohydrates in the diet and limiting the hours each day that you allow yourself to eat. Diabetes is changed from a bully to a wimp. A fourth reason I believe so many men and women are able to reverse their diabetes has to do with my emphasis on using your blood sugar meter, and specifically using it to test how various foods and meals affect your glucose levels. Many diabetics rarely test their blood sugar, and of those who do test, usually they only test in the morning. But I've insisted from the very beginning of this channel that you need to be testing yourself after your meals to discover how high your blood sugar will peak. First, find out when your own particular blood sugar tends to peak, and for me, that's around an hour after my last bite of food, but it might be longer for you. Find out when your glucose peaks and then test yourself at that time after various meals that you eat. And sure enough, motivation will suddenly appear in your life. And what's more, I won't have to preach that hard to you. Instead of me telling you to avoid bananas, I can just say, well, you think bananas are good for diabetics? Fine. Eat a couple of bananas. Wait an hour or an hour and a half and test your glucose and see what they do to you. You'll change your mind in a hurry unless you've been so brainwashed that you're convinced that outrageous glucose spikes are natural and don't really mean anything at all, which is, if I can be a little bit blunt, one of the stupidest ideas anyone has ever had. People watch my videos, they start using their glucose meter this way, and they learn more from Mike the blood sugar meter than they ever could from a dozen diabetic dietitians. A fifth reason why people find deliverance from high blood sugar through this program, and I'm convinced it's one of the more important ones, is that people learn that sugar is not your only enemy. Almost every diabetic comes home from the doctor knowing that he really needs to avoid sugar, desserts, sodas, candy, and so forth. But that's about as far as they take it. And sadly, that's also about as far as many doctors and dietitians take it. Oh yeah, they might also tell you to avoid white bread and white rice and substitute whole wheat bread and brown rice for them. They'll say things like, be sure and eat healthy whole grain bread rather than white bread, and eat bran flakes rather than Fruit Loops and Cocoa Puff cereal. But what they don't tell you, and apparently have never even considered, is that the so-called healthy whole grain foods are almost as bad for spiking blood sugar as the candy bars and the white bread. Even whole grain breads and brown rice and potatoes, the natural starchy high-carb foods, are made up of chains of sugar molecules. They're not technically sugar while they sit on your plate, but as soon as you eat them, they end up in your stomach and they turn into sugar lightning fast. So whether you eat a donut or a couple of slices of whole grain toast, whether you eat cotton candy or a bowl of brown rice, whether you eat a slice of cake or a baked potato, the results are pretty much the same. The starchy foods are going to turn into sugar very, very quickly. And your diabetic body can't tell the difference between that kind of sugar and the sugar that comes from the chocolate cake or the Snickers candy bar. In both cases, blood sugar will spike like crazy. Many doctors and nutritionists will say things like, now, instead of eating a piece of pie, eat an apple or an orange. But for most diabetics, you're not gaining all that much in terms of blood sugar spikes. Sure, you'll get more vitamins from the fruit, but what good are vitamins if the food that contains them is sending your blood sugar into the stratosphere? Now, when diabetics learn this, and they confirm it with their blood sugar meters, it's like a light suddenly comes on. They realize that they're going to have to get far more radical in their dietary changes. And when they do, and they start seeing their glucose numbers drop like a stone, they get so motivated. There's just no stopping them. They will keep at it until they go to the doctor for their next visit, and the doctor's jaw drops when he or she sees how improved their A1C score is from 3 months previously. I believe a sixth reason why diabetes find a reversal of their A1C scores while watching this channel is related to the diabetic community that is formed around this channel. They watch the testimonies, they read the comments under the videos, and they realize that they're not alone. And they hear so many men and women tell of how much they've improved that they begin to say to themselves, I think I can be one of them. And sure enough, in many cases, that is exactly what they become. So don't stop commenting and sharing your stories of victory in those comments. They not only bless me, they bless lots of newly diagnosed diabetics who are starving for some good news. Okay, I said I would share 7 reasons why diabetics are finding amazing deliverance while watching this channel. But before I give the 7th, and I believe the most important reason of all, I want to pause and share a few brief video clips from some of the people I have interviewed over the last few years. So, drum roll please, what was your next A1C 3 months later after you've been told you've got serious diabetes and high A1C, high glucose? What was the next A1C?
5.6.
5.6. What did you think when they told you that?
I cried. I cried. But I was over the moon. I was hoping to get 6 point something. 5.6.
As Dennis always says, and I think this is right, use Mike. Mike is possibly your best friend when you first discover it. Learn what you can eat, learn what you can't. Experiment with food, and you will, trust me, in a matter of weeks, maybe even a month, you will feel so much better. And once you start feeling better, you'll want to keep going with that feeling. And that feeling will drive you through. And then
during that 3-month time, did you get the feeling, I think I'm beating this thing. I think I'm winning. And when you went back the next time, 3 months later, were you excited? Were you just curious? What was your feeling as you went through those 3 months?
Yes, well, remember, because of your channel, I was checking my blood sugar with my meter. I was checking it constantly so I could see that I was doing better and better and better. And I was actually anxious to go get the next A1C run. And he got the results back real quickly, and he was thrilled. He was shocked and thrilled to tell me, you're now at a 4.9, from a 9.9 to a 4.9. He said in all of his years of practice, he's older than I am. He's in his 70s, I believe now. And he said, in all my years of practice, I've never seen that happen.
I was going to find out whether all this keto and low carb and everything I was seeing on YouTube was the truth, or if it wasn't. I had one shot at this, and I did not waver. And I knew that within 3 or 4 months, I was going to have the truth. And I did. My A1C went to a 5.8, and the doctor kept saying, how did you do this? She just kept going, how did you do this?
And the doctor's office called me 2 or 3 days later and said, doctor wants to see you again. And I knew my numbers were up, and I knew it was probably along the blood sugar line. When I asked her what my A1C was, and she told me 10, I about fell off the chair. By the time I was able to get back in for a follow-up, it was 13 days later. And I immediately started keto low carb, and within that 13 days, I had my sugars back to the normal range. My average was about 112. And he was really impressed by that just in that short amount of time. I had lost, I think, about 9 or 10 pounds during that 13 days already. But since then, my A1C, when I went back in just last week to have it checked 90 days after my original, I was down to 5.8, and my average blood sugars were right around 110, 108, 110.
Okay, we've made it through 6 reasons why I believe so many people are finding amazing victory over diabetes while watching this YouTube channel. Let me give the 7th. We Christians use the word calling frequently. We talk about our calling, and by that we mean the particular ministry God has equipped us for and called us to do. Now, non-Christians also use that term. You often hear the expression, "you missed your calling." But it's really a Christian term, and we consider that every single follower of Christ has a calling, some form of ministry that he or she is uniquely gifted, anointed, and called to do. In most cases, it's not preaching, but it will always have something to do with blessing people. Ministry is all about people, and it's all about the love of God. Now, I have to admit that the idea of me being called as a minister to diabetics was never my first choice. I wanted to be a Billy Graham, and God has used me in preaching and evangelism. But one of the great surprises of my life is just how determined God has been to push me into this ministry to diabetics, and how greatly He's blessed it far beyond anything else I've ever done. And as I've reflected on this, I'm convinced that this ministry to diabetics is a manifestation of God's great love, a love He has for all people. You know, many of the people that I've interviewed have not been Christians. Some have been Muslims, and many have been secular individuals that rarely gave God much attention. And I can tell you that it pleases me to no end to see God's immense love He has for all people. It almost seems like He's saying to the diabetics of this world, whatever their religion, or if they have no religion at all, come to me, taste and see that I'm good, and I care about you. Well, I won't bug you any more on this subject. I know some of you are gritting your teeth and saying, I wish you would just shut up with all this religious talk. But the truth is, I would be incredibly ungrateful if I did not give glory to the one who's really behind all these amazing testimonies. If you've been helped by this YouTube channel, I have to tell you, it's not really me, it's Him and His Son, Jesus Christ. Okay, that's it for now. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. YouTube will notice those likes and will promote it more aggressively to others looking for answers to diabetes. And consider subscribing to this channel, then click that bell icon so you'll be notified every time we post a new video. God bless, and see you again soon.